Morning, everyone. There's lots to cover today, and the Mark Norman case has been really interesting. I thought that we were going to see a lot of stuff come out in that case, but it ended up collapsing in May, and they paid him off, and it kind of went away, and there were some lingering questions, and this deals with those lingering questions. Okay, here we go. Ottawa Citizens reporting. Government officials claimed Ontario police were investigating military efforts to allegedly hide documents in Mark Norman case. That turned out to be false, so they never started the investigation. An Ontario police investigation into allegations the Canadian military tried to hide documents in the Mark Norman affair never happened, despite official federal government claims to the contrary. This newspaper has confirmed. The investigation was supposed to have been turned over to the RCMP by the RCMP, to the Ontario Provincial Police more than a year ago, but that was only done on Sunday, 4 days after this newspaper, the Ottawa Citizen, began questioning whether an investigation had actually been done. The alleged attempts to hide the documents requested from the Defense Department and Canadian forces under the Access to Information Law was revealed in December 2018 pre-trial proceedings in the case of Vice Admiral Norman. That bombshell further fueled concerns among Norman's supporters, who alleged the Liberal government and senior military officers were trying to railroad the Vice Admiral, who was once the second in command of the Canadian forces. Norman had been charged by the RCMP with one count of breach of trust for allegedly revealing information about the Liberal government's plans to derail a supply ship project. But the case against Norman collapsed in May 2019, with the Vice Admiral exonerated and a large financial settlement paid by the federal government to the naval officer. They crippled him. They made him pay his own legal fees, despite clauses in his agreements that said he had to talk to who he talked to, number one, and number two, that shielded him from, that had clauses that said any legal fees would be paid by the Canadian military. Not so. He had to pay his own legal fees until their case collapsed, and they had to back pay. He had a GoFundMe page going, and I think he ended up donating that to charity. But he had raised, I think, enough to cover the legal fees, because it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable what this government did, and it is still continuing to be unbelievable. This government is incredibly offensive. Okay, back to the article. During pretrial in the Norman case, a military officer testified that his boss, a brigadier general, bragged that Norman's name was deliberately not used in internal military and Department of National Defense files, meaning any search for records under the Access to Information Law about Norman would come up empty. The testimony was enough to prompt Caroline Manyard, the federal government's information watchdog, to begin an investigation into the Canadian Forces and DND's handling of access request in the Norman case. She revealed 2 weeks ago that the results of her initial investigation into the matter showed evidence of the possible commission of an offense under the access law, and she had referred the issue to the Attorney General of Canada back in February 2019 for further investigation. Have you heard anything about that? No? Oh, because of COVID? Yeah, February 2019, right, sure. Back to this. Thanks, David Lemeny. That was when he became the Attorney General, I believe. Or maybe that was 2018. Goodness. The years are blurring together. Anyway, doesn't matter. Back to this. In response to Manyard's statement from 2 weeks ago, officials with the federal government, as well as the Public Prosecution Services of Canada, which prosecuted Norman, said the concerns raised by the information watchdog were referred first to the RCMP and then from there to the Ontario Provincial Police. But an investigation by the Ottawa Citizen has found those claims were false. The OPP confirmed that they have never been contacted to investigate the allegations that documents were hidden in the Norman case. The RCMP was indeed contacted by the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, on March 19, 2019, about the concerns raised by Manyard. The RCMP, however, determined it was a conflict of interest due to its investigation of Norman, and it had planned to refer the case to the OPP. However, due to an administrative error and changes in senior staff at the time, it appears we never made that referral. RCMP spokesman Daniel Bryan, excuse me if I got that wrong, said in response to questions from the Ottawa Citizen, "We sincerely regret this oversight and have taken immediate steps to correct this situation." Bryan said on August 2nd, 4 days after the newspaper began questioning whether an investigation had actually been done. The RCMP, quote, made a formal request to the OPP to consider an investigation into these allegations. He also noted that at the same time, the RCMP advised the Office of the Information Commissioner about the development. Manyard had never followed up on whether an investigation had started into her concerns the access law had been broken. The access law allows members of the public to pay $5 to try to access federal documents, but the process can take years, and there is much criticism about how it operates. Yeah. In Norman's pretrial hearing, a military officer testified that he was processing an access to information request about the Vice Admiral in 2017 that returned no results. When he sought clarification, the witness testified that his boss, a brigadier general, smiled and told him, "Don't worry, this isn't our first rodeo. We made sure we never used his name. Send back the nil result." He seemed proud to provide that response, the witness, a major in the Canadian Forces, told the court. The witness did not know Norman but came forward because of his concerns that the actions being taken were not proper. The details during Norman's pretrial hearing about the efforts within the Canadian Forces to circumvent the access law raised significant questions about whether the naval officer could get a fair trial. The judge was concerned enough about the testimony that a publication ban was used to keep the name of the military witness out of the public domain, as there were concerns that he would face retribution by the Canadian Forces leadership for revealing methods used to circumvent the access law. Norman's pretrial also heard allegations of close cooperation between prosecutors and the government organization which supports the Prime Minister's office. I believe that's the Privy Council they're referring to there. The Public Prosecution Service of Canada denied that was the case. Oh, maybe, sorry, it's the Public Prosecution, not Privy Council. Public Prosecution Service. So that's very interesting. I wonder what that case will turn up. I think that it's interesting that Mark Norman can have the RCMP investigate him, but Justin Trudeau hasn't had one investigation in like we or SNC or anything. No investigation, just, everything's fine. Ethics investigations, yes, but no criminal investigations. If this were a conservative prime minister fueling Fraser Institute. I was going to say, what's that one that I used last time? The Fraser Institute for doing youth rallies at schools. Do you think that it would be the same investigation as soon as they found out that all of their friends and family were being enriched by it? Do you think they'd be like, "Oh yeah, no problem. We'll see you guys later"? I think the government would be down by now. That'd be that. NDP would be saying, "Oh my goodness, it's Stephen Harper's fault." Moving forward, how much power do you think that Facebook and Twitter should have? Should they have the power to silence the President of the United States Twitter account or his campaign Twitter account? How much influence should they have over an election, right, in the United States? And I mean, the United States is kind of the gold standard of elections, right? It's supposed to be democratically free. It elected Donald Trump, so whether you agree with it or not, I mean, that was the result. So here is Benny, and he's a reporter of some note, I suppose. He's got a blue check mark, and he says, here's the Hill. It says Twitter bans. I'm going to take me out of here for a second. Hold on. Twitter bans Trump campaign until it deletes tweet with COVID-19 misinformation. Twitter says coronavirus disinformation spread by Chinese officials does not violate rules. Okay, and here is the person who is pushing this. He was a former campaign aide for Kamala Harris, which is interesting. So this is Nick Picilio. I don't know. Picilio? I don't know. The original tweet from Team Trump is in violation of the Twitter rules on COVID-19 misinformation, and we've required removal. So, man, isn't that interesting that a former communication aide, press secretary, for Kamala Harris, has now the power to silence an opponent of hers, and he uses it on a public forum like Twitter. And so does Facebook. It's not just Twitter, it's Facebook. Here it is. Facebook deletes Trump posts for the first time, citing misinformation. So do the tech oligarchs, our tech overlords have final say in what's true and what's not? Or is it the President of the United States gets to say, and that should be kept on the platforms? This free speech thing has become a very interesting conversation, because there are people, and I mean, it's out of the control of the governments now. We're at a place where Facebook and Twitter get to decide what's acceptable speech. Why is that? That's very interesting, right? If it doesn't happen on Twitter, if you say something on Parler, does it matter? Parlay, does it matter? Right? I don't know. And when something's a public forum, like Facebook and Twitter are in a lot of circles, then them having the power to silence somebody like the President of the United States, regardless of who that person is, and regardless of what that person is saying, that says a lot. That says a lot about their power. Should it remain so great? Should it remain unchecked? It is great, and it is unchecked currently. And they're not beholden by the First Amendment, which usually would be the law in the United States. And the First Amendment is, of course, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people peacefully to assemble. So they're just doing an end run around the United States to say, well, while we're not trying to stifle your free speech or making a law against it, we're just going to unilaterally remove it. And there's no law because it's not against the law. We're just not gonna allow it to be there anymore. It's erased. It's gone. How much power should that company have? Should they be able to erase speech as if it never happened just because they own a platform? And if they own a platform that is publishing like that, is being editorial like that, they're removing things, don't they have a responsibility to uphold, at least in the United States, those laws that if they want to operate in the United States, don't they have to respect those laws? Like, it's very interesting what's going on here, right? Who's in charge? Who's in charge? And if the president's in charge, if the president represents the will of the people, and if the will of the people is respected and the president is in charge, then why do they get to do this? And if he's not, then what's the point? Right? Then if Twitter and Facebook are in charge and we don't get to elect them and they get to do whatever they want because they're a private company and they get to ignore whatever rules they want because they're multinational, right? Is there no expectation of fair play? Is there no expectation of an equal ground? Is there no expectation of an equal voice at all? We're done with that? Is that the country? Is that the world we want to live in? Are we going to just sleepwalk into this? Because we are. This is where we're going. This is what's happening. They're not hiding it. They're doing it in plain sight. Moving into Canada, MPs OK NDP motion granting immunity to We Charity witnesses want to hear from a number of Kielburger employees. So if you show up and say, well, they did this and I kind of participated, then they'll get in trouble and maybe you won't to the same extent. I don't know. That's an interesting turn. Here's O'Regan and Telford helped raise $400,000 for We Charity. That's the Globe and Mail. I don't have a subscription right now, so link is in the description if you want to check it out. I did not read that article. But man, again, cast this as Stephen Harper. Cast this as Fraser Institute Youth Arm. Cast this as, the finance minister for Harper, whoever that was at the time. And imagine the same scandal. It would be absolutely... Pundits would be frothing at the mouth. They'd be so angry, right? They'd be upset. They'd be unbelievable. Oh my God, we have to do this, that. And at this point, I mean, it's almost apologetic. Here it is. Global News, Trudeau's government to release documents related to We Charity deal. Opposition parties are hoping the imminent release of government documents related to the We Charity will shed some light on how an organization with close ties to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was awarded a deal to administer a federal student grant program. The government has until Saturday to table within... The government has until Saturday to table with the House of Commons Finance Committee all memos, briefing notes, correspondence, and other documents related to the now cancelled agreement. In the meantime, however, the committee's efforts to delve deeper into the controversy could be stymied due to the unavailability of key witnesses. The committee, which heard last week from Trudeau and We Charity founders Craig and Mark Kielburger, is scheduled to hold another video conference meeting Thursday. But committee chair Wayne Easter said it could be cancelled because as of late Wednesday, none of the invited witnesses had yet confirmed their appearance. Conservative members of the committee had submitted a list of witnesses they wanted to hear from, including We Charity's Chief Financial Officer, Victor Lee, and Employment Minister Carla Quattro. Sorry if I got that wrong. Easter said Quattro has indicated she won't be available until next week, and Lee isn't available until sometime next month. NDP committee member Peter Julian said he's not yet concerned that witnesses are not making themselves available for questioning about the affair, which has mired the government in allegations of unethical conduct. Indeed, he is hoping that the documents will clarify some facts and give the committee a better sense of who should be called as witnesses and what questions should be asked. There's been many contradictions through this, and I think it's fair to say that the documents hopefully will start giving us some answers, Julian said in an interview. I think in terms of the next witnesses to get answers, the documents will help point us in the right direction. And the rest is kind of just going through the We scandal historically as it has been. Man, like I said, time and complication make this a scandal that's really easy and simple to pass off. It's the sponsorship scandal on steroids. But if you put time and complication to it, people forget. People go back to their regular lives, etc. Now, Trudeau's lost a lot of the lead that he had enjoyed because of the COVID bump in a crisis. You get behind the leader or whatever. And the Trudeau Liberals had enjoyed a 20-point lead over the Conservatives, leaderless Conservatives. And, well, I mean, that's been erased. So it's not been not impactful. But like I said yesterday, I think we're back kind of at an electorate that looks a lot like it did in the 2019 election. And I don't think if there's an election called, even though 50% of people would want it, it would become what's that word? Referendum. Referendum was the word. Referendum on Trudeau. It becomes a referendum on him and his spending. And basically it either legitimizes what he did or it kicks him out of office. And as I've said before, the rest of the field is weak. It's very, very weak. I was saying that it looks like Peter MacKay is the heir apparent, the person that the establishment has selected, and O'Toole has got a distant second. Now, I've seen Leslyn Lewis to be, there was a story earlier today. Let me see if I can find it. Leslyn Lewis is the story of the Conservative leadership race. Hold on. So here's what I was talking about. Leslyn Lewis shaping up to be the story of the Conservative leadership race. That's July 29th. That was published. And yeah, she's got lots of momentum. But I really do think that the heir apparent is going to be one of either MacKay or O'Toole. And here's National Post from a couple hours ago, 3 hours ago, saying O'Toole edges ahead of rival MacKay in fundraising among Conservative leadership contenders. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. While they are talking about Lewis, it is between these two, I think, for the establishment pick, and I'm still going to be surprised if it's not MacKay. Really. And I think he's a terrible candidate. I think Scheer's probably better, and Scheer's not better. Like, Scheer's not great. Like, the strategy for the last election was attack Bernier. It doesn't make much sense. It's crazy. Yes, Warren Kinsella, go attack Bernier, and let's give Trudeau a strong minority with NDP support. Morons. Anyway, here's Bill Morneau moving into masks. This is just crazy. I can't believe this. Here's Bill Morneau. Listen, your actions speak louder than your words. Is this guy in your bubble, Minister? Is this guy in your bubble? So he's not social distancing. He's eating at a restaurant. Sure, he's drinking. You know, he's got his water there, so that's why his mask's off. Fine, whatever. But that's interesting. There was a newspaper guy I saw, and I can't remember who it was. Maybe Joe Warmington. He tweeted, "Who paid?" And I think he deleted the tweet because I was going to use it because I thought it was funny. But I don't know. I don't know if it was Joe Warmington. There was somebody who deleted or who had a tweet that said who paid, and then they deleted it. Okay, so moving into the masks. Here is Quebec. Teachers, administrators urge Quebec to make masks mandatory in high schools. This is a terrible idea. Here is from 2015. Okay, September 10th, 2015. Union says Ontario nurses can't be forced to wear masks in flu season. Oh, I didn't highlight this. Oh, I thought I highlighted this. I think I used it on Twitter. Hold on. The Ontario Nurses Association says hospitals will no longer be allowed to shame healthcare workers into getting a flu shot following an arbitrator's ruling striking down a vaccine or mask policy. About 30 Ontario hospitals implemented the policy, which forces nurses and other hospital workers to wear an unfitted surgical mask for the entire flu season if they do not get the influenza vaccine, ONA President Linda Haslam Stout said Thursday. The test case was against the Sault Area Hospital in Sault Ste. Marie, which tried to use the policy to boost their staff immunization rates, added Haslam Stroud. They were basically coercing and shaming nurses into getting an influenza vaccine if they individually chose not to take it, she said. They made them all wear masks, and they had little stickers on their name tag that everyone knew meant, "I don't have my vaccine." The policy made private medical information public because everyone could tell who had been vaccinated and who had not, said Dr. Michael Gardam, Director of Infection Prevention and Control at the University Health Network and Women's College Hospital in Toronto. Essentially, they're outing you because your personal information, whether you get vaccinated or not, is now public knowledge because you're forced to wear a mask, said Gardam. People know who you are. Arbitrator Jim Hayes found the vaccine or mask policy was unreasonable and a coercive tool to force healthcare workers to get the flu shot. Experts testified that it was illogical to force healthy nurses to wear masks, says Hayes. Masks, and Hayes concluded the masks were not protecting patients or nurses from the flu. Quote, "The sad part about it is it was giving our patients a false sense of security, and we knew that," said Haslam Stroud. So, yeah, the masks. Here's another one. Everything you need to know, but might be too afraid to ask about masks. This is May 23rd, 2020. And I've got this one highlighted. No, but it's one part that I want to show you specifically. Here it is. So this is CBC. Is there any danger in wearing a mask? Actually, there can be, says CBC. If people are wearing masks for extended periods of time without properly cleaning them, Furness said, a bacterial biofilm can build up on the outside layer of your mask. If 30 million Canadians are wearing a cloth mask all day long, you'll see a noticeable spike in bacterial lung infections in a month or so, he said, especially because many people wearing them are often immunocompromised. Think about it. Our bodies are not designed to have a dirty cloth mask in front of our mouth all day. So that's right from CBC. I've also compiled, and the link is in the description, but it's also, if you go to canadareport.co, right at the top, the link is there. I've compiled a list of studies that are mostly peer-reviewed, that have controls that show in scientific ways that masks don't reduce spread of respiratory viral diseases. Period. Flu, COVID-19. It doesn't do what they're saying that it does. And I've got some here that say that it hurts more than it helps. I've got all sorts of stuff. The only problem right now is that the link doesn't click all by itself. So I'll have to fix that, but I'm going to do that later on today. I've got lots of stuff to do. But anyway, I've put this up just in case people want to use it. You can use it if you want to. Link is in the description. But I think that it's really irresponsible to be reporting things that we know better than, right? Like we know better. And we should be reporting factually. Here's another aspect to the COVID stuff. Please read and retweet, they say. Thousands of coronavirus deaths to be wiped off official records following urgent review. This is in the United Kingdom. And guess what's happening in Canada? Same thing. Here is Guy Hawks. Oh, I get it now. It's clever. Okay. They say, Doug Ford sucks for sure. Ontarians want to know why Doug Ford won't open up your beautiful province. Check out the press release below. They were faking the coronavirus data. So I was like, I don't like it when people don't leave links. So I found the press release. It was from May 17th, and it's on the public, well, link is in the description, but here it is. Public Health Ontario. Okay, and it's on publichealthontario.ca, so it's as legitimate as it can be. And it says, reported deaths were inflated to assess the impact of potential underdetected COVID-19 deaths. An inflation factor of 50% was chosen since on average, several European countries reported underdetections of 50% in an analysis conducted by the New York Times. Isn't that weird? Isn't that strange? Oh, I watched Tim Pool yesterday. There was a commenter, I think it was MK a while ago, who was giving me a hard time for saying weird. I watched Tim Pool. Somebody linked me the Tim Pool thing on Joe Biden because Joe Biden is an empty suit. And he said, isn't it weird, like 100 times. It was ridiculous. I was laughing because I was like, dude, I would get raked over the coals for saying that. Okay, anyway, so they've inflated the Ontario document here. So they've inflated the death numbers by 50%. Here's the death numbers in Guelph, 11. I don't know if every single one of those people has been named, like, and all of that stuff. I don't know how they're inflating the death numbers. That seems odd to me. I did not read all 11 names, so I couldn't name them for you. But I can't imagine these numbers necessitate the insane talking points that we're seeing on the news. It seems very disconnected. It seems like the people on the news are talking about something that is not actually happening. And you can point to the data and say, look, where's the emergency? Please explain to me how this is an emergency. And you can't have a rational conversation. They just go off on you. It's insane. Here's Canada. Here's Norman Levine. And he's not a blue check mark, but I think he's a reporter who's a notable person. He says, finally, after some dithering while other countries made deals, Canada has begun to line up supply. I say because the deal is a pittance of the number of vaccines the country will actually need. Hopefully more announcements are imminent. Again, this vaccine doesn't exist. What I know of this is that we've partnered with the Chinese government and Chinese military to roll out this vaccine quickly. Vaccines usually take 15 years to be developed and tested fully. This has been less than a year that this has been in development. Why does anybody think that this is a good idea for buying vaccines or supplying or securing a supply? We don't know that it's safe. We don't know that it's a good idea to use for anybody. What the heck is going on? This is like putting the cart before the horse, loading the cart with all of the, like, your household goods and getting it completely loaded. And then what? Like, what's the plan now? Like, unload the cart. Let's go back to the drawing board. Here's Global News yesterday floating the idea of what is this? Curfews. Curfews? Really? And Australia, who's had much less death than we've had by a large factor. They've had 200 odd deaths, and we've had over 8,000 deaths. They've got curfews in place. So why wouldn't Canada comply with curfews, right? Why not? Why not bring curfews in 6 months after the pandemic started? Why not? Let's just lock everybody down. Everybody lose their job. Everybody go on the government dole and just sit down and be happy. Why can't you be happy like that? Just sit there and watch the country spend billions of dollars on international bodies and NGOs while you go to work, if you can go to work. And if you can't go to work, well, just sit in your house. We'll pay you to sit in your house until you get kicked out because you can't pay rent, or you can't pay food, or you can't pay for your electricity or whatever, right? It just seems you can't replace an entire economy on government dole, and you can't keep an economy artificially locked down for numbers like this. And you can't convince a population that there's an emergency when there just isn't one by having newspaper misreport things. It doesn't work, or it shouldn't work. It's working up to this point, but people are questioning it. People are seriously questioning it. I get more emails every day saying, yeah, it is weird. So that's enough for me today. The last one here, I didn't talk about this. This Sudbury woman was shot by a masked gunman in downtown Sudbury like yesterday, and they're blaming Toronto violence. And I thought, man, so maybe this wasn't in Sudbury. I was using the Sudbury Star, but maybe this was in Toronto. Yeah, it was in Toronto. But the gunman approached a woman in front of a Toronto community housing co-op and shot her in the leg before fleeing the park. And they're saying the victim was targeted. I think that this is an interesting thing to put onto the news articles, because I've seen this a lot in Guelph. The victim was targeted. The victim was known to police, or whatever, known to be part of this dispute. There's no concern for public safety. I mean, what if you were walking your dog, right? And what if you were walking your kid in that neighborhood? No concern for public safety. Don't worry about that. Why is it acceptable that the gun crime has gone up, the percentage that it has, and I don't have the percentages in front of me, in Toronto, and nobody's upset about this? Why are we continuing to allow these false laws that do nothing to actually attack the problem of illegal guns coming across the border? Why do we allow these things to come into play? I don't know how the best way to fight back is. I really don't. I was looking for a documentary. This is what I'll end on today. 27 minutes. I was looking for a documentary. I used to watch the World War II documentaries. They're interesting. And there was an invasion of Poland part, and I watched the World War II in color because I thought this was the one that it was. And it talked about how during the Nazi occupation of Poland, I think it was Poland, the Polish they would stop every day at 11 o'clock and stop until 11:02 or something like that, like 2 minutes of withholding work to show their protest or to show their displeasure with being under occupation, right? Like they had to live and they had to go to the grocery store and they had to do all that stuff, but they didn't want to comply, and this was their way to show that they were not complying. And I wish that I could find that clip again. If you watch World War II documentaries, or if you have any idea what I'm talking about, please link it in the comments. I've been looking for this clip because I want to talk about it, and I want to say that's the example that I think, because Canada's too big. Canada's too big to have a big protest every day in Ottawa. And even if you get a big protest in Ottawa, nobody's going to talk about it, right? And we have to figure something out that everybody can participate in, that everybody can understand. It's easy to spread, easy to communicate, and easy to understand what's going on. What's happening in Ottawa is corrupt. What's happening in Ottawa is not being looked at in an honest way. What's happening in Ottawa is crony giveaways to friends and liberal tilted acolytes who are attacking youth, who are directly, and when I say attacking, they're targeting the youth with rhetoric, with propaganda, with being a good person equals these policies. And that's not okay. That's not how education should work. We should be teaching kids to think critically, not to think in terms of, I want to be a good person, and therefore I want the group to like me, and therefore I'm going to go along with this insanity. And regardless of your left-right bent, I don't think that funding a political organization that is targeting children through school boards with billion-dollar deals like this, that also enrich the Prime Minister directly and the Prime Minister's family directly, I don't think that that's a small scandal, and I think that that's a big deal, and I don't think it's appropriate, regardless of your political bent. If Harper was doing it or if Trudeau's doing it. But if Harper was doing it, there'd be action on it. And because Trudeau's doing it, there's not. And that's notable. That's interesting. That's not okay. And that's enough for me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co, even though I'm derelict in continuing to update that. Sorry, everyone. And, well, despite that, have a wonderful, wonderful